Welcome to another episode of EMA Cloud Rants. Today we are going to talk about vSphere 6.5. It is November 15th, the day that vSphere 6.5 is now available for download. And there are three notable new elements in this release. Jens, your customers have asked for one of them very specifically and for quite a while.
Actually, I had a very strange encounter of the third kind this morning. I was talking to a German university, and we were planning a Horizon View deployment, and they were telling me they are planning to implement vCenter in Windows in a physical machine. And then I thought, what? Am I in 2005? Did these guys not listen what's happening? And yeah, so there's the appliance. It's been around since quite some time. But it's the preferred platform definitely right now, and VMware has continued to make great improvements, especially regarding high availability, since the vCenter for Windows and its high availability function, which was coming from an OEM, was kind of pulled. There was a gap in there, so that's a big thing.
So the appliance, and that makes the deployment much easier and much faster for your customers. Can you quantify how much easier and how much faster?
You can skip the entire Windows operating system, and it has a built-in database, so you can basically bring it up in 20-30 minutes in an easy deployment. And you can even script it with a JSON file. So if you are doing a lab environment and so on, you can bring up several of these in a couple of minutes. It's very efficient.
Wow. That is definitely interesting. Deployment is always a pain point for everybody.
And it's not only deployment, Torsten. They've also added really features like backup and restore functionality now, which was a pain in the management. So you call it day one, day two is I think the accepted term, day two operations, and they've really added something in there. High availability of the vCenter and additional stuff. And not only vCenter itself, the client, the new HTML5 client is there.
So there was another interesting announcement, and that was the vSphere Integrated Containers, Dan. That doesn't seem to be in the 6.5 release and will be coming soon, hopefully very soon. What are your thoughts on vSphere Integrated Containers?
Yeah, it seems like they had a test version out in July, and it was supposed to be part of the release, and it must have been dropped, but is still said to be coming later this year. It's really sort of a compromise. It brings containers into their VM world the way that you're used to managing it. It's not going to have the same efficiencies as running pure containers because you still end up with a VM and an OS replicated over and over. But you get an environment you're familiar with, and you can run it side by side with traditional VMs, and you get to build apps under the more containerized architectures and manage it with tools you're used to. You just don't get all of the efficiencies which they are planning to bring with Photon when they bring that out.
I think, Dan, that's the big key. It was the same thing about OpenStack, which is now a non-issue anymore, as I think OpenStack in the SMB and mid-enterprise market is gone. But it's the same thing here. I hope it's not the same deadly kind of embrace that VMware is trying to do, where something that doesn't actually fully make business sense gets pulled into VMware because of the management tools. But Jens, you are the one who wrote the book on management tools on vRealize, right? And then later it may turn out, maybe it's not that good to manage those containers. Maybe, let's stay with something else made by VMware. I mean, it's going to be an interesting question for the future.
Well, I would say VMware definitely didn't kill OpenStack. I think regarding VMware Integrated OpenStack, they just also supported this because everybody else did, and I guess they are going to support it because it kind of pushes the NSX along, because NSX is a vital piece for VMware Integrated OpenStack. I think in the container world, things are different because many more customers need it actually. What do you think? What do you think, Dan?
Well, containers, we just did some research on workload automation, and we asked container deployment. And I think we phrased the question, do you have limited workloads running, many workloads running in containers? 70% had some containers in production. Now, we didn't go into the depth of assessing, how broad is that across your stack and, all of your your required workloads. But certainly it's bigger than I expected it would be already. So I think folks are starting to experiment with it. It's mostly the newer cutting edge, cloud type applications. People aren't rewriting old stuff yet in containers that I'm aware of, but there's more of it going on than you would think. And for many of them, they need somewhere to put it that they're comfortable with. So even, putting it into VIC, the integrated containers, at least it's an environment you're familiar with. That may not be where it lives, forever, but it's a way to get started. Let the developers play with the architectures, understand them, build some new things up, and not impose too much change in operations. But eventually, if you really want to wring all the performance out of it, you're going to have to do it in Photon or something more native, I think.
And this is the key for VMware to win over the developers, because VMware vSphere has always been an operations tool, and the developers, they went to AWS, right? They weren't somewhere else. And as you said, Photon is going to be an interesting animal once it is ready. And then I need to come to another new capability in vSphere 6.5 in that context, and that is the REST APIs. So now we have REST API support, and from my experience as a developer or development lead, I can only say you used to come across missing API calls all the time, and this is now the end of it. Now there's a clear, modern, unified REST API in vSphere. So that's definitely an important and really good new capability. And then the final thing we want to talk about, Jens, you also have some customer stories on that, is the vSphere client, where we all have some customer feedback, right? What's new in the vSphere client?
The vSphere client is basically the very old, the C# client, the Windows client that I think everybody loves. So then, when was it, in 5.1, ages ago, VMware kind of decided the web client, the Flash-based web client, will be the new thing as a kind of maybe bridge technology, a transitional technology, because I think VMware wasn't experienced, so HTML5 was kind of too new to the world at that time. And everybody hated it. Whoever I talked to, everybody, the customers hated it, VMware employees hated it, everybody hated it. And now they are finally moving to a fully fledged HTML5 client. They started to do so on the ESX servers as a fling. So the ESX servers now have a native HTML5 client that finally replaces the vSphere client, the Windows client, for ESXi management. So you go just to HTTPS, your ESXi server /UI, and there you go. And now they finally are rolling it out for the vCenter as well, but not feature complete yet.
So to sum this up, we have a new RESTful API, something that developers and everybody, not only even developers, have been asking for a long time. We have a new vSphere web client, HTML5-based web client, so the Flash stuff is now gone, also a big request. We have a appliance that makes the deployment faster and the operations also easier. And then finally, what we don't have but wanted is the vSphere Integrated Container support. We are promised that will arrive later on this year. So this was another episode of EMA Cloud Rants. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Torsten.
Thank you, Torsten.